I'm Shane Heap, Sheriff of Elbert County, Colorado. This is in response to President Obama's visit on April 3, 2013. We are deeply saddened that it has taken the tragic events of this last year for people to take notice of the fundamental violence problems that we have in our country. We also deeply regret that these tragic events have only served to be a launching point for political agendas and grandstanding. A more intense discussion should be about why people are acting out so violently and using any kind of instrument they can find, even if it's driving a car into a Walmart and attacking innocent people with a club. First of all, we respect the right of our fellow law enforcement organizations who operate in urban settings to pass local laws which work best for their needs. We, unlike our state legislature, know that there are very different needs from urban and rural departments. That's why we elect local law enforcement. The source of frustration, and in some cases, the passionate speaking out of some of our fellow sheriffs, is because of the extreme measures of our state legislature. To enact laws that are both constitutionally questionable and punitive to law-abiding citizens who have done nothing wrong borders on legislative abuse. We're in favor of keeping guns out of the hands of violent criminals, but we believe it can be done without stripping the rights of law-abiding citizens. This must stop. The President flew in today from Washington, D.C., which has the highest per capita murder rate in the nation, and he wants to tell Colorado what to do. We are frustrated with this kind of political hypocrisy. Mr. Obama has fought vehemently for the right to use drone strikes in foreign countries without cumbersome bureaucratic oversight. We applaud his tactic of addressing the source of terrorism and violence through these strikes. However, his domestic policy has been to legislatively carpet bomb law-abiding citizens with excessive restrictions. He continues to fail in addressing the violence in our society, which operates outside the law and outside his broad legislative attack on constitutional rights. He has spent billions of dollars and countless American lives defending our border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, even venturing into Pakistan over the objections of its government to root out violence. Yet our borders remain porous, and illegal guns stream across unabated, endangering both our citizens and all of the innocents involved in border crossings. He has spent billions providing much-needed protection for school children in foreign countries, and yet has not spent one dime to give an armed protection to our children's schools. Why aren't our children and our border defended? Why won't he treat us at least as well as he treats foreign countries? He came here today to push his political agenda in our state and laud the legislative excess of fellow extreme legislators. He's been part of the choir that leverages tragedy to enact extreme legislation, which ignores the root problems of violence and anger in our country. Had these new gun laws been in effect in Newtown, they would not have stopped the senseless massacre of innocent children, because the shooter used someone else's legally purchased guns. The long-term ineffectiveness of Mr. Obama's actions and political showmanship only lacked a flight suit, aircraft carrier, and a sign proclaiming mission accomplished. The political hypocrisy of our state legislature is no different. While they push to enact extreme restrictions against honest citizens' Second Amendment rights, they also try to abolish the death penalty. This just as the prosecution begins in their case against the shooter in the Aurora Theater massacre. It is fundamentally wrong to be increasing restrictions on those who have committed no crime while easing the punishment for one of the most vicious killers in recent history. That should alert all of us that the present legislative majority is not acting for the long-term interest of our state, and they are not truly committed to reducing crime, but simply promoting their social agendas. We firmly believe the citizens of Colorado are being misled by politicians who promise that restricting and punishing law-abiding citizens who have done nothing wrong will somehow change the actions of those using and obtaining guns illegally. You cannot stop criminals by punishing the 99.9% of honest people. While it is politically expedient, it's tactically ineffective. Rather than partisan politicians, we need statesmen who will admit we have a deeper problem of violence in our country and address it with wisdom. Anyone who dares challenge the present extreme political environment is maligned and demonized. Even so, we must speak out. We're the first responders to violent people with guns. And because our deputies bravely stand between the innocent victims and the shooters, we, more than anyone else, want to prevent violent people from using any instrument which can kill or harm others. We want enforceable laws that address the criminals and not innocent citizens. As long as we have a culture of violence in our country, people will find ways to commit atrocities. We should not rest until we've addressed this culture of violence, rather than just the instruments that they choose to use. We want leaders to discuss how people get so emotionally distraught, and yet family, neighbors, friends, and even some doctors ignore all the warning signs. We want real solutions that work, not grandstanding and unenforceable laws that promote social agendas over the real protection of our citizens. It is time we get real with the problems facing our state and our nation, and quit using fear and legislative grandstanding to enact more regulations that only serve to punish honest citizens. We plead for statesmen who have the courage to take the lead in dispelling the political divisions driven by our leaders for their own advancement. We want the violence to stop, not just left unaddressed so it can find a new instrument of death when the guns are all gone.
He sent a good message, but when you say, why? So much violence, so much violence, so much violence. And then you'll have the cop-out that it's just genetically in us. That's the cop-out. That's to go around. That's to not acknowledge so that people don't have to take responsibility in changing their behavior. Why so much violence? Here, I'll give you one example, and this is a new report.
13-year-old Devin Brown loved mixed martial arts fighting and had dreams of going to culinary school. But Devin's dreams were shattered after his father says he became the victim of cruel bullying.
He got jumped or somebody beat him up.
The 8th grader moved to Columbus to live with his dad, Ray Brown, 6 months ago and started school at Rothschild Middle School. Brown says the bullying started in November.
We talked to the school. They we haven't heard anything, they just kind of let it go.
But an incident at school last week was the final straw for Devin. Devin told teachers about a girl in his class with a butcher knife threatening to kill a teacher.
He said, well, everybody's calling me a snitch now. And he said there's about 15, 20 people that want to jump on me.
That night, Devin hung himself in his closet with a belt. Devin did not leave a note, but Brown says his son confided in friends earlier that day.
But the kids never said, they didn't think anything. They thought he was just, blowing off steam.
Brown's mission now, to make the bullying stop.
I'm going to do whatever I can in his name.
Brown says his child is not the only child being bullied at Rothschild, and teachers and students confirm that fighting is a problem. NBC 38 filed an open records request with the Columbus Police Department to find out how many times officers have responded to Rothschild. We found out that in the past 6 months, officers have responded 15 times for various charges such as simple assault and simple battery. NBC 38 spoke to Rothschild's principal, Reginald Williamson, but he declined to comment. The Muskogee County School District also had no comment.
Now, it's sad that the school has to have such a name, but we won't go into that, okay? But that's one major example right there, because that example extends clear into adulthood, because you never outgrow it. No, bullies do not outgrow being bullies. They grow up to be adult bullies, and they continue to practice doing unto others that they don't want done unto themselves. And then there's something else that was in this bullying story. This should be a big indicator. Well, what was it? It was a girl who was threatening to stab a teacher she was mad at, that he told her when he got attacked by all these people, and most of them being boys. And why would that be? Well, because they think they're white knights. They're all trying to impress that girl, even in middle school. They're all trying to impress that girl, even in middle school. There you go. The division amongst the genders. The way we treat one another. That's a big, big factor in all the violence that goes on. We're going to leave out the theater shooting in Colorado and Sandy Hook, because we know pretty much that them were staged events, false flags. That's right, staged events. The things that wasn't staged was this boy. The things that ain't staged is when somebody does drive their vehicle into a Walmart, or somebody walks in and shoots up a bunch of people that are innocent. Isn't always a staged event. Sandy Hook and the school and movie theater shooting up in Colorado were both staged events. Guaranteed, staged, planned, deliberate, and not by the people that they're putting in your face. Not whatsoever. The people they're putting in your face had nothing to do with it. They're the patsies. Like the Oklahoma City bombing, Timothy McVeigh was the patsy. Like Kennedy, John R.B. Oswald was the patsy. The people they set up to take the fall for something they didn't do. Okay, but it's as simple as this. The violence comes from the division of the women and men. It comes from people's ability to groupthink and to not use their own brain. To use a brain in a glass jar to think with. To fit in. Peer pressure. It's just like bullying. You never outgrow. That's right. You never outgrow peer pressure. If people actually really outgrow peer pressure, you wouldn't have 20-somethings, 30-something, 40-something struggling so hard to fit in. That's right. You wouldn't have so many people in their 40s and 50s even that are saying bullshit that they know is bullshit because they want to fit in, fit in, fit in. The reason they're worried about fitting in is because they're worried about being accepted. Why? Because they never outgrew the peer pressure. Just like they never outgrew the bullying. The violence will continue. It hadn't begun, will continue, and will not stop. Will not stop at all. Because you people use every cop-out that you can think of to go around, to not acknowledge the truth when it's put in your face. You'll think drama's normal. Women will continue to chase bad boys. Drama will continue to happen. You'll all love drama, the way so many people love drama. You'll love it, and you'll keep bullying and ridiculing people and pushing people to the brink of suicide. Feeling big inside because you're hurting them. Yes, yes, ain't that right? Part of the game, isn't it? And then they'll lash out, and then you'll blame them for what you've done to them. Because we live in a sick world where people have refused to take responsibility and use every cop-out they can find to go around so that they don't have to take responsibility, so that they can continue to practice doing unto others what they don't want done unto themselves. And then you want to complain about the violence. Huh? Maybe when you practice trying to do what I've said, the epic failure of mankind from the beginning of time, from the very beginning of time, was to grow the hell up. Maybe when you try that, growing up and taking responsibility, the wars will stop and you'll never have another war again. The bullying will stop, because as you noticed in that bullying report, the school did what all schools do. They turned their blind eye and looked another way and allowed the bullying to happen. And then pretend that they have a tough, no bullying policy. That's what they do. They pretend. They don't have a tough bullying policy. It'd be tough for them to acknowledge the truth like the rest of the people. And then you wonder why there's so much violence.